Hello and welcome to the Clean Room Practices, Behavior, and Gowning Training. The purpose of this training is to instruct you on how to conduct yourselves when working inside of the clean room. Our objectives for this training will be to define contamination and identify preventative controls, stating the preparatory steps required to prevent contamination when working inside of the clean room, describe the purpose and explain the requirements to perform gowning and degowning in and out of the clean room, describe the purpose of personnel flow when moving throughout the clean room environment, and then finally explain the expectation of personnel behavior within the clean room environment. What is contamination? It means to make impure or unclean by contact or mixture. In the pharmaceutical field, we expand on this definition to say any introduced materials, whether it be chemical, biochemical, or microbial species, not intended to be part of the manufacturing process or the drug substance or the drug product that you're making. When working inside of a clean room, the best practice is to work aseptically, which means free of microorganisms that cause disease or harm to the process. In the pharmaceutical field, we expand on this definition to say, aseptic manufacturing means that all materials, equipment, and container closure systems are used only after sterilization. All working steps are performed in clean room areas to avoid contamination. In order to work aseptically and to minimize contamination, there are steps that must be adhered to. Those steps that should be taken prior to entering the clean room include, number one, practicing good hygiene. Number two, making sure you are gowned correctly. And then finally, an overall awareness when working inside the clean room. It's important to note that people are the largest contaminant in the clean room environment. 70% of contamination comes from people, followed by 10 to 20% from air and soil, and then finally 10% from water and liquid. It's also important to note that doubling times for a cell line is 48 hours. The doubling time for a typical bacteria is 20 to 25 minutes. There are two types of contaminations that could occur: viable and non-viable particulates. Viable particulates are particulates that contain one or more living microorganisms. Non-viable particulates are particulates that do not contain a living organism. Non-viable particulates act as carriers for viable particulates. Examples of non-viable particulates would be your raw materials, gowning materials, equipment, strands of hair, and chemical residue. It's important to think about what you're doing when working in the clean room. Be aware of processes that are taking place and your impact on the clean room environment. Have discussions if you're unaware of activities that are taking place. We must all be accountable for our actions when working inside of the clean room environment. Complacency should never set in, as this could lead to errors or mistakes in the clean room environment. The Code of Federal Regulations, CFR 211-28, lists guidance on personnel working in a clean room environment, to include wearing clean clothing, the use of protective gowning materials, and practicing good sanitation and health habits, just to name a few. We will discuss more of this shortly. We should always pay attention to signage when working inside of the clean room or accessing the clean room environment. Personnel flow maps are located on the walls prior to entering inside the clean room as well. Personnel movement is a factor designed to eliminate or minimize contamination in the clean room. If a sign says "do not enter," we should not enter for the purpose of minimizing contamination. The next image identifies the various areas of the clean room as well as support areas. As we just mentioned, it's important that we follow the personnel flow map in order to minimize or prevent contamination in the clean room. Please locate the available personnel movement maps in your clean room areas. High-efficiency particulate air, or HEPA filters, are used to filter out most of contaminants from the clean room. Its design consists of mats of randomly arranged fiberglass fibers with diameters between 0.5 and 2.0 microns. HEPA filtration removes at least 99.97% 98% of airborne particles. The HEPA filters are installed in the ceiling and return ducts, which push air out into the walls. It's important not to block any of the return ducts on the walls so that the airflow remains uninterrupted. For you to have a better understanding when discussing micron size, you'll see that one hair strand is typically 50 to 100 microns in diameter. If one bacteria consists of 1 to 3 microns, imagine how many colonies could be on one hair strand. This is why it's important when we follow proper gowning procedures in order to prevent inadvertent contamination into the clean room environment. Clean rooms are designed with a demarcation line. This separates a lesser controlled side from a more controlled side. It's important that we follow the appropriate gowning procedures when crossing over the demarcation line. There are steps that must be taken when entering airlock 1 and subsequently the gowning room. It's important that we follow the steps in the order that they are laid out. Those instructions should be listed on the wall. As we mentioned earlier, the preparatory steps we can take to minimize contamination in the clean room is to not wear jewelry, makeup, follow proper personnel flow in the clean room, adhere to the dress code, practice good health and hygiene, gown properly, not bringing consumables in the clean room, not wearing cologne, perfume, or scented lotions which could give off particulates in the environment. Gowning creates a barrier between personnel and the process or in-process solutions. Gowning ensures that the quality of the processes or in-process solutions is not compromised. You may have heard me mention this term earlier, personnel movement. Personnel flow maps must always be followed in order to prevent contamination, cross-contamination. Personnel must walk slowly and deliberate and avoid maximum disruption to the airflow, which is designed to push air down and out of the clean room environment. We should always be mindful of demarcation lines in the clean room, which separates areas with different gowning requirements. Why should we be mindful of disrupting airflow? Particulates exist in the air, and this is why we have to be mindful about not wearing scented items or makeup inside the clean room. The average human hair is about 100 microns. A bacterial cell line can be as small as 0.3 microns. This means that many colonies of bacteria could be on one hair strand. This is why it's important to follow proper gowning procedures. As a reminder, minimizing quick movements while working inside the clean room will reduce the number of particulates in the air. The faster you conduct activities in this area means the more potential particulates in the air. The minimum dress code for all personnel is at least short sleeve shirts, long pants, long socks, and closed-toed shoes. No tank tops, sleeveless shirts, shorts, high heels, or open back shoes are allowed. All clothing must be visibly clean, free of debris, and free of rips or holes. A reminder to reduce particulates in the air, makeup must not be worn in the laboratory. Perfume and cologne must not be worn in the clean room as well. Jewelry should also not be worn inside the clean room. The backside of a watch is a dirty area that could have a number of viable and non-viable particulates. Coughing or sneezing produces a strong force of particulates in the air. Therefore, when inside the clean room, you should do so within the fold of your arm, followed by re-sanitizing your gloves and possibly degowning and regowning, depending on what activities are occurring at the time. Smoking increases the particulate load in your mouth immensely. As a best practice, after smoking, drink a glass of water before entering the clean room and possibly waiting for 20 minutes in order to reduce particulate load. What would you consider to be an open wound? Cuts, abrasions, rashes such as poison ivy, burns and sunburns, fresh tattoos, and piercings. These can all lead to flaking, weeping skin, and can easily become infected. What should you do? Consult staff and/or the site nurse. Bandage all open wounds using non-particle shedding bandage and change bandage often. No consumables or personal items are allowed in the lab area and storage areas. This includes food, drinks, gum, tobacco, medication, throat or cough lozenges, lip balms, etc. Personal cell phone use is permissible with the professor's approval in case of urgent personal situations only, which would be family emergencies. Transportation of cell phones into and use within controlled areas of the labs should be avoided if possible. All surfaces of cell phones must be wiped with a 70% IPA solution or clean room wipes. This should be done prior to entering the controlled areas. After contact with individual's face, the cell phone should also be re-sanitized. Other items that should be sanitized are those items with a non-porous surface and used only for school purposes. This would include laptops, iPads, cameras, notebooks, and pens. All surfaces of school-related items should be wiped with that 70% IPA solution. When wiping down your equipment, remember not to compromise the functionality of the equipment to avoid overuse of the 70% IPA solution. No corrugated cardboard or particle shedding material should be allowed inside the cleanroom environment as well. Make sure to clean both the outside of your laptop and the inside, which would include external, the screen, and the keyboard. In terms of personnel behavior, you should avoid the following: touching exposed skin, scratching, moving or adjusting your hairnet, beard cover, or face mask, adjusting your safety glasses, shaking hands with other individuals, picking items up from the floor surface, or touching surfaces, which would be the counters and walls or the floor. If any of these actions take place, you may need to re-sanitize with a 70% IPA solution or double glove. You should always follow the signage for a proper hand washing technique as directed by the Centers for Disease Control, as this will help to reduce introducing particulate matters into the clean room. This image shows the impact proper hand washing can have when preparing to enter the clean room. Because our hands encounter many different surfaces, we should always wash properly to reduce colony-forming units that may be present. It's important to understand the difference between cleaning versus disinfecting. Cleaning removes unwanted matter by mechanical or chemical methods, such as the act of hand washing with soap. Disinfection reduces the number of microorganisms to an acceptable level. When gowning, always follow the procedure and apply disinfectant when stated when using cleaning supplies. When using disinfectants, you should reference the cleaning protocol. All materials entering the clean room must be inspected, cleaned, and wiped down with a 70% IPA solution. Wipe down work areas at the beginning and end of each class or as designated by classification compliance. During lunch or long interruptions, at the end of the class, ensure that all products, supplies, and materials are stored or covered as to prevent them from contamination. Refer to the cleaning protocol for further guidance related to cleaning supplies, workspaces, and equipment. Gowning materials must be visually inspected for holes and/or tears in the outer packages. If holes and/or tears are observed, remove this item from the package and place in the appropriate bin. If any gowning material, whether it be gowns, gloves, shoes, covers, etc., is torn or ripped and/or broken, do not use. If a breach occurs, replace affected material as soon as possible. Common kinds of preventable damage seen on gowns can be identified as holes and/or tears, broken zippers, stains, whether it be from pen graffiti or makeup. When gowning into the clean room, take your time when gowning or degowning. Be aware of surroundings and sharp edges that could possibly damage your garments. Wear the correct size. Too large, excess material can catch on to the edges. Too small weakens seams and causes tears. And remember, no makeup. Use caution around chemicals being used. Do not write, draw, or test pens on garments. Now that we have covered topics related to clean room behaviors and practices, let's now observe a couple individuals going through the gowning process as they make their way into the clean room. When preparing to go inside the clean room, all personnel should familiarize themselves with the personnel movement map. Understanding how to move throughout the facility will help to minimize contamination in the clean room. When making your way into the clean room, it's important to pay attention to the instructions that are posted on the wall. Before entering Airlock 1, take at least 3 small steps with each foot on the tacky mat. Remove the dirty tacky mat layer if needed. Once inside Airlock 1, take another 3 small steps with each foot on the tacky mat. Remove the dirty tacky mat layer if needed. Once you have entered the gowning/storage room, locate the instructions on the wall for next steps. The first step requires you to wash and dry your hands thoroughly. You should also be mindful of physical distancing during this step by limiting the number of personnel in the gowning room due to COVID restrictions. Step 4 requires you to don gloves. The next step requires you to clean safety goggles with the pre-saturated wipes that are available. If you wear glasses, your glasses should also be cleaned with pre-saturated wipes. Next, you're required to don your hairnet and beard cover if applicable. Beard covers should be worn underneath your face mask. Using the mirror provided, please make sure that all hair is tucked inside of the hairnet. When you're ready to gown, you want to inspect the outer bag to make sure that there are no holes or punctures. If so, dispose of that gowning material immediately. Once you verify that there are no holes, open the bag and inspect your coveralls or frocks to make sure that there's no damage or graffiti. You want to don your coveralls or your frock in a manner that prevents them from touching the floor or the walls to minimize contamination. The next step requires you to adjust your gloves over your sleeves. Grab your booties. If in a package, once again, inspect the package to make sure there's no holes or punctures. Once you verify this, open the package. You want to don your booties and step down on the more controlled side over the demarcation line. Using the mirror provided, ensure all personal clothing is tucked inside the frock or coveralls and that all gowning materials are done properly. Sanitize your gloves with 70% IPA solution. Once your gloves have dried, you can now proceed to Airlock 2. Once inside Airlock 2 and before entering the clean room, take at least 3 small steps with each foot on the tacky mat. Remove the dirty sticky mat layer if needed. You can now proceed into the clean room. Now that you have entered the clean room, you should always refer to protocols related to equipment usage, cleaning, and workspace protocols, as well as any other protocols related to operations involved inside the clean room environment. When you're ready to degown, enter Airlock 3. Remove booties or shoe covers while crossing over the demarcation line. Place those items in the designated bin. Remove hairnet, beard cover, and gloves. Dispose in the designated red bin. Remove coverall or frock, as well as hood, and place in the appropriate bin. Now that we have covered clean room practices, behaviors, and gowning procedures, you should now be able to define contamination and identify preventative controls. State the preparatory steps required to prevent contamination when entering a clean room. Describe the purpose and explain the requirements to perform gowning and degowning. Describe the purpose of personnel flow and identify applicable signage. And then finally, explain the expectations of personnel behavior within a clean room environment.